Alan Hadley with My Photo Networks. Thanks for joining me for this next video tutorial on shooting still life. We're going to continue our series shooting with water droplets. Now, what I'm going to do is actually walk you through the steps to create these images that we're going to shoot. Now understand that the materials that we're going to use are available to anyone. There's stuff that's right around your home, so you're not going to have to go out and purchase a bunch of extra stuff to be able to create these images. The whole premise behind this project is to show you a simplistic way to create a really creative image. So with that said, let's get started. Let's take a look at some of the other equipment that we're going to be using in this video tutorial. We're going to be using a Nikon SB800 that's connected to a Pocket Wizard. Now, the Pocket Wizard is actually a remote firing mechanism that we're going to use to fire this so we have no cords. We also have a second Pocket Wizard that's going to connect to our camera. And then we're also going to be using a remote release. The next thing that we want to do is actually set our flash to the correct power output, or at least what we think is the correct power output at this point. The first thing you want to do is come in here and make sure that your flash is set on manual. And I have reduced this down to 1/4 of the full output power. So instead of being on full power for when it flashes, it's going to be 1/4 of that full power. Our next step is to set our flash up, how we're going to actually light our background. Because what we're wanting to do is have that flash just bounce off the background. Now, as you've noticed, I used a coffee can. I also have a black card or some type of a folder that's setting up. That's going to block the light from getting onto my lens from the flash itself so that I reduce any possibility of flare. Now you'll notice that on my background, the white card that's actually behind everything, I have this piece of 8.5 by 11 photo paper that's been printed with this colorful background or some type of a color combination. All that's going to be used for is to actually use our flash and bounce light off of this, which is going to reflect this into our water and give us a colorful reflection on our water itself. One of the main items that we're going to have is a Ziploc bag. Now this bag is going to actually serve our main purpose. It's going to create the water droplet that we're going to need, but it's going to create the droplets continuously for us, so that we can shoot multiple images without having to worry about one individual drop. Simply take the Ziploc bag and fill it full of water, about 3/4 of the way, and then just simply zip it. Now, what I'm using is a heavy freezer bag. It's a double Ziploc, so it's not going to come apart whenever I actually have it clamped, and I'll show you how to do that next. The next thing that you want to do is actually clamp your bag to your pole that you have set up here. So essentially what we're going to do is just simply clamp this, and it's going to actually hold everything for us. I'm going to double that over just so it's a little tougher. And I'm going to clamp this. Now essentially what this thing is going to do is give us a constant stream of water that's going to drip down into the bowl that we have set up here. Once you get to the point where your camera is set up and you're ready to actually start shooting or focusing on the droplet itself, what you want to do is simply use some type of a knife or sharp object and put a little hole right in the end of this. So we're just going to poke a hole in there so that the water is dripping out down into our bowl. As you can see, our bag is running out of water. And what I've done is reposition the bag so that my drip changes to a slower drip. That way I can focus on that individual drip in the water more specifically. So, you know, depending on how much water you actually put in the bag will determine how you can configure it. So pay attention to that, and I think what you'll find is you're going to shoot a lot of images, but you're going to end up with a great finished image. As you begin to start to photograph this, before you actually shoot your shot, what you want to do is bring in something like a knife and place it right where the droplets are and focus on that. Then pull the knife out and do your shot. Let's talk about exposure for a second. Now, if you remember, we're using an SB800. What I've done is dial that down to 1/4 of the actual power, and then 1/8 of the actual power, so that I could vary my shutter speed and my f-stop. Now, for the most part, your shutter speed needs to be at the maximum, 250th of a second, to stop that action. But the flash is actually helping you stop that action too. So really, from an exposure standpoint, what you want to pay attention to is your f-stop. My initial f-stop started at f10, and I ended up adjusting my flash, which allowed me to go to a deeper f-stop. In other words, I went from 1/8 of power to 1/4 of the power. So that allowed me to go from f10 to f13, which gave me better depth of field. So the idea here is to play around with the f-stop and the output of your flash so that you can maximize your depth of field yet get a good exposure in camera. Let's take a look at the next 7 images. These are the finished images, and as you'll see, they're all a little different. Our background color has saturated really well, and by reducing the amount of output power on our flash, it's enabled us to actually saturate the color and capture the splash as it happened. I think what you'll find is this is a very creative, fun project to do. It's very simple, and you can do it at home. Hey, thanks for joining me for this video tutorial, and I look forward to our next.